So firstly, congratulations on writing your book, Felicity. So this is Felicity's new book, Balance and Other BS. You must be so pleased getting this out.
Yes, it was a bit of a mission. I wrote it in 3 months, so it was very fast. You know, I have three kids, so just juggling that. I mean, my writing hours between 8 and 12
At night.
At night,
Yeah.
and yes, but look, I'm very proud of it, and I'm looking at it here too.
Yeah, well done. Mine's a bit more.
Yes, although mine's got lots of highlights to it. It does. You know,
hopefully they're good. Oh, good. That's fantastic. Congratulations. So one of the things that really intrigued me about the book was you covered themes that I find interesting, themes around imposter syndrome, feminism, having it all, and perfectionism. And when we put those themes on the table and all the choice points we have as women, how can we, and then also social media, that was another very big thing you covered. How do we not ever doubt ourselves? How can we not ever question how we're not getting it right and why we don't have it all, when these themes are massive gravitational pulls on how we should be thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's human nature to doubt yourself, and I think, you know, in my experience, sometimes when I do doubt myself, it's actually good because it makes me strive more and strive higher. But for me, there's a bit of a tipping point, isn't there, where if you're constantly doubting yourself, say with imposter syndrome or not feeling like you live up to the expectations, perfectionism, and then it can be a really slippery slope, I think, to your emotional undoing. And my book, my book talks about, you know, feminism and what feminism promised us as women was having it all, really. And now we've come to realize as women that we can't have it all, well, not at the same time, and still function and be, you know, and juggle everything and still look happy, and life is great.
Or be happy.
Or be happy, yeah. Look, yeah, we might try and look happy, but are we happy?
Yeah, exactly.
So I suppose I just really felt I needed to call these things out. I mean, look, what I put in here has been called out before. I mean, all these things I think women have dealt with for many decades. I suppose what I'm questioning is what we're adding now is another layer with the wellness industry, with social media, and just from my experiences of talking to women. I mean, I've worked with women for 2 decades in my career. I just feel like we're at a point now where, and the stats show it, where women are feeling like they've got no time to themselves anymore, that we're struggling to sleep, we're cranky. I mean, there's a great study that I came across by the Jean Hales Foundation, which surveyed over 15,000 Australian women. And it was horrifying, some of those stats. And
yeah, I'll give you a couple of the stats.
Please do.
Women worry. 67% feel nervous, anxious, or on edge, with 53% not able to control their worry. That one blew me away. 78% of women report difficulty sleeping or even falling asleep. That's nearly everybody. 34% no time for themselves ever, and 68% feel foggy, and 73%, which is nearly everyone, can't switch off. Those stats, is that they the stats you're referring to?
Yeah, those are the stats. And I suppose I just want to differentiate. My book is about, I mean, I don't talk about the clinically diagnosed mental health issues. That's not what I'm on about. I'm about all those other women who, it's more about the well-being and our feeling of wellness and facing life, and who, you know, we know that life has dips and goes up and down, but a lot of the time we're not getting up there like perhaps we're used to. And that's what I wanted to call out and just reassure women, and that many of us are feeling like this, and with all these things coming crashing at us, like social media and wellness, and we must drink green juice, we must get to yoga, we must do this, we must do that, pre-pandemic and also pandemic, and even worse now that the pandemic, because we've got that extra layer of worry with, do we wear a mask? Can we have 20 people over, or can we have 4 people over? You know, so I suppose I just see all these things piling up, and then women are like, I'm done. Like what is this? How am I going to cope?
Why, how come men don't? I have 6 questions in my head right now, so I'm just going to try and break it down. First, I'll start with the first point, because I know I did a big chunk to start with, and I want to drill down. Feminism did so much for us, and feminism does so much for us. There are new versions of it that I'm not on board with, the more extreme versions of it. But feminism's core message, that I absolutely have equal opportunity with everybody else. Everyone has equal opportunity to strive for their dreams and to have those dreams respected based on my skill, my ability. I believe feminism ultimately is a great equalizer if it's taken in its purest form. But it also kind of put in there in the 70s, when after we got the pill and after we realized we could go back into the workforce. And do you remember being told, I think you're younger than me, when you joined the government service, when you're married, you had to quit and go and be a wife?
No,
I was alive during that time. So things changed in the 70s.
Yes.
But with it came this, well, but the structure of it didn't change. The 9 to 5 hasn't really changed. The men still go for one goal. It's changed a little bit, but generally it's still maintained. The laws haven't really, there is some leave. So maternity and paternity leave in Australia, and there's equality around that, but it's not expected the men to take it. There's still structurally this expectation that we'll somehow slip in the full-time work and still be everything else. So feminism is a beautiful ideal, but the reality of it, we're in 2020, hasn't unfolded that way, to my reckoning.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think we all agree that the tenets of feminism, what feminism means, is amazing, and I think, and men are on board with that too. I think we're still trying to navigate, and it's very messy, about what feminism actually. How do we live a feminist lifestyle? I mean, my husband is a great feminist ally, but from his perspective, he's still trying to work that out as well. Like, he's juggling a full-time job with trying to be a good dad, and I'm trying to do the same. And so we're just in this really messy place of how we all agree and we all want the same goal and we all want to be equal, but how do we're just working it out still. And I think, that, and it will be particularly interesting. You talk about the workplace. I mean, pre-pandemic, the workplace was still very much set up for a 1950s housewife scenario, wasn't it? And he takes his briefcase and off he goes to work. But
so not built for the 1950s as a woman. I am not a 1950s woman. I say to my husband, I am the worst wife. If I was a 1950s wife, you would never pick this up. It's just, I'm appalling at the 9 to 5 and about what's expected of me. I don't understand how they coped during their generation. No wonder Prozac went through the roof. Like, Mummy's little helper. So that's how you're defined, to be at home and to look pretty and to wear kitten heels whilst you make the roast. Every night.
Oh, it's funny. Actually, I've got a bit there. I can't remember who it was, but I've got a quote in there about the 1950s housewife, all that you just said, and they were expected to have an orgasm on the clean kitchen floor.
That's right. I remember that. I can't remember who it was, but I remember it had a laugh. Yeah. So the structures haven't really changed for it. Do you think this COVID and working from home is going to redefine how I think it's got worse. So can I rant just for a tick? Because I think it's got worse. Because now women are at home taking care of the kids and expected to work. And a lot of times the studies are showing the husbands are locking themselves in a different room to do their work. And the women are having to educate, homeschool, manage, and do their jobs. So to me, we didn't make any ground during this period as the way I'd like to have seen it.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And that study that I was talking about before from University of Melbourne actually showed that women, in terms of the housework, women took on more, homeschooling more, cooking more, financial worries more, whereas the men didn't even shift at all. I think in many ways, again, a social experiment of working from home has been wonderful, because I think it has opened up men's eyes to what women really do at home, like the extent of things that they do at home, particularly if they've got kids. But on the flip side, I feel like we've swung completely the other way, because now there is no lines or delineation between work and life. For example, this morning, my husband's on the computer at 7:30 in the morning, which is fine, but I'm thinking it's 7:30 in the morning. You don't start work. He generally does not start work at 7:30. He's in there, we're all checking our emails at different times. I'm writing till 12, which is fine. That's how it is. But it's actually gone in the opposite direction now, where work is molded into life and life is molded into work. Whereas before we were complaining that we couldn't find enough time. Now it's just one big mess.
Yeah, I agree. And I know, this is anecdotal, but I know a few couples and none of these lines have broken down. None of these boundaries have shifted. It's still the man goes in and to his study or whatever the junk room is because he has to work from home. The women are homeschooling and still responsible for the emotional burden. I call it the emotional log. Like we need two people to pick up the emotional log. I'm going to pick up my end, pick up your end. And they're telling me that's not happening. The emotional log is they're just dragging the log around trying to manage the emotional burden for the family, which I think a lot of this comes back to healthy boundaries and emotional burdens.
Yeah, and I mean, I call it the mental load a lot in my book. And I think absolutely, and in some ways it has to be that case. I mean, even in my situation, it has to be that way because Tom earns far more money than I do. And I worked on a website called Women, which sadly was a COVID casualty. I mean, I'm still got work. I'm still working at News Corp, so I was okay. But I think because the majority of women are in part-time, women make up the majority of part-time work, casual work, they're lower down the ranks, so they're the first to get cut. I mean, more women have lost their jobs or had hours cut in COVID than men, particularly millennial women and younger women.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of step up and pick up the slack. And I do worry in 5 and 10 years what are the gains we've made in, say, feminism and equality over the last 5 years. Is it just going to get worse? Like, what, 14% pay gap already? What are we going to be in 5 years? 20?
Yeah.
Because suddenly all these women have lost their jobs.
Yes. And we can only get the part-time work. So a lot of women can only get part-time work, and because it's so important now for the main breadwinner to keep making sure they keep that. So I think it's probably, I tend to be a pessimist. Could you believe I'm a coach? I really am.
How does that work?
I tend to be so pragmatic. People see it as being negative, but I'm also quite a defensive pessimist. If I look for the worst, I can then sustain making something different so it doesn't happen that way. So I'm like the guardian people want around me because I'm going to see where the gaps are. And the biggest gap I see is women back at home only able to get part-time work, being more casualized. And so again, we're going to entrench this pattern of women doing all of that and holding the emotional burden even more. That's where I'm seeing it in the next couple of years. Not the cheeriest message, but that's the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah, oh no, I 100% agree with you. I mean, I'm seeing it around in my neighborhood, with my friends. I mean, my own experience. I mean, because we're all desperately trying to hang on to our jobs because we're in a recession. It's probably going to get worse once, the government JobKeeper's cut. And so I think it just, but then in many ways, you just have to, this is just how it is. This is just what we have to do at the moment. We have to get through this. And I suppose for me, I just come back to, well, what can I do in my home to still be a feminist role model for my sons and daughters? And how can I still, okay, mum's going to do work now. And then, no, dad's going to unpack the dishwasher. Or how can we do the, do little things that, because I'm now about raising the next generation of, feminist men and women and strive for more equality. So I suppose that's just how I resolve it in my...
Yeah, we'll get to how we're going to resolve it. I've still got more problems to point out that you had in your book. Don't rush me. Because the other thing you spoke about, which is really dear and near to my heart, is social media and the effect it's having on people seeming to not, even though they know it, appreciate. You're seeing people at their best on social media when you're having your worst day. And that message, no matter how much we say it, it's not sinking in to being how we're not looking at it and seeing it through that filter. That is a filtered photo of somebody at their very best who maybe on Instagram spent 2 hours setting up the shot. And we're comparing ourselves to this ridiculous perfection whilst we're surrounded by laundry and things screaming.
What do we do? What do we do about that? I mean, you're so right. I mean, I include a study in my book that shows even if it was done out of the US, even if you have a healthy self-esteem, it's more about body image in women and men. Actually, they studied men. Even if you have a healthy self-esteem, you have a healthy body image, and you look at someone on Instagram, and you will subconsciously compare yourself to them, even if you're happy with what you look like, or you're happy with how your life is. So it's really tricky to remember that, to self-regulate ourselves.
You didn't go hard enough in your book. You were gentle about turning social media off. I'm like, come on, Felicity, bring this one home. Switch it off. Switch it off for a day. Switch it off all day. And then, so I have a limit. I used to be a junkie for Facebook, so I definitely am a Facebook addict. I am switched off from Facebook. My team has to give me the code when I am allowed to go in. I go in, I do the posts I need to do. I'm not allowed to scroll. And then I say I'm out and they change the code. I can't trust me with social media. So I just banned myself and I've outsourced them letting me know when I'm needed to go in and to do what I need to do. It is no longer a mechanism for me to scroll through, what's it called, the news feed?
Yeah, news feed, yeah.
I used to try to get to the end of the news feed. That's how bad I was.
You were bad.
Yeah, I know I'm not alone.
No.
So it's one of the biggest addictions we have on the planet right now. It's incredibly addictive. And I know the rate of suicide amongst teenage girls has gone up 300%. And it pretty well matches, if you look at the studies with Jonathan Haidt, exactly the growth of social media. So I'm hitting the stop button on it. In my world, we don't get access to these images and that virtual world where perfection is being sold, because I'm not seeing it doing anything that's good for us. And we're creating the next generation of girls, teenage girls, who are raised thinking this is normal. And again, it's like the COVID rules. Do never think this is normal. Never think what you're looking at is healthy, normal, or going to help you. But we don't seem to have that mentality. So I'm hitting the stop button on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tricky, isn't it? I mean, for me, it's a love-hate relationship. I mean, working in media,
yeah,
I need it. Like, I need to be on social. I get stories out of that. I try and on my feed, I mean, I get some income out of it now. So I have to play in that world, but then I also need to just check myself constantly that this is not real. And I suppose I've just got really diligent about unfollowing people that I now just make, if they in a second make me feel not good enough, bad that I'm not doing something about mothering, or that I'm not exercising, or that I'm not drinking some, whiz bang juice, or that, oh, maybe I should be, wearing lipstick this way, or unfollow. I don't know. No, I mean, who knows?
No, for work. So basically social media is our business. We have really successful businesses on social media, unbelievably. But in terms of my personal mental health, and you talk about that later in the book, me being off that as a form of connection is not the way to do it. I do it with real connection. Like, it has to be with somebody I know, and it has to be a real-time conversation. If I'm not doing that, I can't call it connection, which is what people are calling it, that asynchronous communication. Someone did a comment 2 days ago and you come back with thank you so much. That no longer counts to me as me in any way nurturing myself. And that seems to be really working for me.
Yeah, I like that idea. Actually, it's quite interesting. I find you talked before about young women on social media, and often, I mean, I worked in magazines for 15 years, and often, especially when I was on Cleo and Cosmo back in the day, we got a lot of flack for photoshopping covers, and often we just get the shot straight from a celebrity Photoshop, so we had no power over that, and we did that. And when I launched Women's Health and was editor of Women's Health, I was very particular in not photoshopping anything. Like, we didn't change waist sizes, thighs, nothing. Right. Which is what I love working about that publication. But we often got flack from Cleo and Cosmo about, you've altered the images, you're making young women feel bad about themselves. You're setting them up for body image issues. But I do look at social media and I think, wow, this is like magazines on steroids.
It is. Well said.
At least there was women. There was only a few women that you could go, okay, you know, no photoshopping on that photo. But where they're running, you know, Kim Kardashian types, for example, who've got trillions of followers, running these through filtered apps and all sorts of things. And so, yes, I do think it is really worrying. And I just hope by the time my kids who are still young, 7, 5 and 2, get to, you know, 10 years time, that it's just not around anymore.
Yeah, I'm banning social media for anybody under 16, just for their mental health.
Yeah.
It's too hard. If I'm queen for a day, if you want to join me, my first resolution at 8 a.m. before we've even had breakfast, I'm banning social media for any child under the age of 16. If you're not old enough yet to be doing a bunch of other things, I don't think you're old enough yet to handle that level of addiction. And thinking that in any way is going to prop up your self-esteem. So one of the other things you talk about in there is this perfectionism. I found that really interesting as well. This idea, what do we do to ourselves? What on earth ever created this world where women put pressure on themselves and women put pressure on other women to be this ideal? What happened? Where did we take that turn where men get to be silver foxes and women are defined in a whole bunch of... What on earth? I'm constantly amazed about how women seem to define women. There was a post recently that upset me that I heard about. I didn't see it because I'm not on there, but and this isn't me criticizing anybody. I definitely never criticize anybody publicly ever. But a woman who will remain nameless, who's quite well known, bagged out Madonna for having work done on her face. Stop. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that. Let women be women the way we define women. The moment other women are clawing to pull that woman into their version of it, we're done. We're not making progress, Felicity. I find that so galvanizing. Just stop. Don't do it. Let me define me the way I want to define me, and you do you. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, I mean, if we go back to, you know, the 1950s housewife and you know, our social, don't hear me out for a minute. I think that, you know, when we were, you know, just in our homes talking over the back fence, I mean, it's human nature to compare yourselves to others. It's just, it's innate, isn't it? I mean, you just automatically do it. But back then we only had a small circle of influence around us. We just had our next door neighbor or the mother of our, you know, mother-in-law or whoever it was. And that's who we learnt from. We shared ideas and we, you know, think, oh yeah, you know what? They're getting a fridge. We should get rid of the icebox and get a fridge.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. But now we have so much more influencing, so many more influences coming to our lives. And I think this builds it. I think, I don't really know. I think it's just over the years, it's become part of our society and then become part of our nature as women that we just second guess ourselves. And perhaps it is linked into feminism, and I'm sure there's some studies that back this up and some other things. But I think we've got all this outside influence coming at us. We should do this, whether it's social media, whether it's other groups of friends, whether it's people in the workplace, whether it's regular media, whether it's TV, whatever is coming at us. And we can't help but question whether our decisions and what we're doing with our lives, or we can't help but benchmark against what other people are doing. And I think it really comes down to your strength of character where you...
I think we can help it. And you're right about this. And we're going to get to that because the first half of your book was where you were pointing out where perhaps we're not quite making some good decisions. And your second half of your book's very much talking about the solutions, and you talk about it. We need to know our values and what drives us. And we do have an antidote for it. It's self-awareness. And you talk about that beautifully. Well, before we get to that, let's talk about, well, how come, rather than that, someone would bag out someone on social media publicly, a woman knocking a woman? That's That to me, can we just ban that at 9 a.m.? I truly believe.
I mean, it says more about the person doing the knocking, doesn't it, than
It does.
knocking. I mean, that's what it fundamentally comes down to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
How do you feel about yourself? Because, you know, so much of what we think we judge someone else is actually a true reflection of what's in is our own self. So if I feel like I am looking at someone and judging them, you know, I self-regulate now and think,
Not me.
okay, what's that saying about me? Because that person's mirroring back to you what you actually is wrong with you. So, but I think that takes a bit of time, and you know, now I'm in my 40s. It's easier to self-regulate yourself than maybe when I was 22.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I've probably learnt to do it now for myself. But it is really tricky. I mean, it's hard.
I'm going to also you didn't talk about this in your book, but I'd also go and say to media, no more takedown pieces on individuals, in that type of realm, like I think they slept with or any of that. No more hit pieces on any woman who dares define themselves outside the strict stereotypes of what woman is meant to be.
Do you know what? It's so tricky because I obviously see all the, you know, obviously working for News Corp, and so I see the stats every day of what certain stories do, and we have an appetite for this. So if a story is written about, you know, someone else, an opinion piece is written just completely having a go at, you know, a female leader or whoever it may be, it will have millions of clicks. So it's this horrible cycle we're in where...
Well, social media has created a cycle where news can only sell on social media, and you need to get the click. To get the click, you have to have the headline, and the headline needs to be this. This seems to be what we're junkies for.
Why as humans do we click on that and read it? Because we are reading that. We want to read things about that make people look bad. It's just, yeah.
So I'm going to make myself look really good right now. I don't read hit pieces. I don't look at ambulances that are pulled over the side of the road. I never look at someone being arrested. As soon as I see there's trouble for someone, I could get emotional saying this. They are living their own version of tragedy right now. They are right now experiencing trauma. And to gaze on that as an observer, like I have any business, it's like looking in through the curtains of their home and looking at their private lives. So I look away, and I have for years. And that to me, again, is a choice we can all make. And that's what I constantly advocate for. Look away or help, but never be an avoider on someone else's pain. That's how I'm choosing to live.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I'm going to take that. That's a great bit of advice. I'm taking that, because sometimes you just can't help yourself look at that ambulance on the side of the road.
Just do help yourself, and just know that everybody who's slowing down and gazing, they're the person who's going to click on that article. And that poor person, like Britney Spears years ago, as we know, massive hit pieces on her. She's the only example I think of because that was the last one I ever looked at. But God, I'm aging myself. Well,
she's back in the news now. Don't worry. She's divorcing from her dad or something. She got that off. See, I mean,
I wish her well.
I see the headlines because that's the grapple that I have, because I prefer not, that's not my bag, that kind of thing. But then I still feel like I can do my bit in media to send good stories of, you know, that nourish our soul out there.
So I study post-psych and you study well-being. Do you think the stories we're talking about would sell? Stories that uplift and are a celebration of people? I mean, it's not the oldest question in the world, but it's one of them.
I think, yeah, of course, the feel-good stories do sell, but the ones that have, but not as much as the, yeah, no, they don't, in a nutshell. Or you have to twist the story. Like that story I was talking about, the headline was "Mums, we're all having a mass breakdown." But that was actually a very positive story in the end.
Yes, it is.
It talked about Veronica struggling, and then I interviewed people from Black Dog about how can cope during lockdown. And so in some ways you can have a very positive, uplifting story, but you've got to have that headline that, you know, gets you in. So yes, I suppose some can do well, but there'll always be a space for the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think womenhood is doing ourselves any favors every time we click on a clickbait. Every time we click on clickbait or go for a hit piece, we are not forwarding what feminism was supposed to be about, which is it's truly, we must champion each other. It is so natural for men to pull together and have clubs and quietly support each other and not kick people out of the club. They seem to be, my husband and his friends, he's had his friends for 55 years.
They're good friends.
They're amazing. They're amazing. And that's the way I see it. And I don't always see the same thing with women. I see, come on, women, if we're truly to live what you've spoken about, because it is all solvable, and you've done a great job in the book of showing how we can do that. This is solvable. We don't have to worry about having it all if we stop comparing ourselves or worry about others judging us. The moment we stop that pattern, we can choose having it all based on our own terms.
Exactly. I think there is a push to, there's a hashtag, obviously, women supporting women. I think we're getting better at it.
Yes.
I think since Me Too, collectively, I feel like that was a real shift. Obviously a shift for sexual harassment in the workplace, but I feel like it was also a shift for women to really come together and support each other more. And the women supporting women hashtag, for example, while I think there are some negative aspects about that, I think generally we are coming together and supporting each other a lot more than we used to, because I feel like that's how we're going to shift. We need to support each other. We need to tell each other stories. We need to tell our own stories so other women can, and that's been probably the most wonderful, reassuring feedback I've got about the book, is that, and I talk about it, I just want it to be a big hug, and I've got lots of messages from women saying, I feel the exact same, and I just thought I was the only one struggling, trying to keep my well-being afloat and doing it all. And in the book I've got there's interviews with Tanya Plibersek, Megan Gale, high profile women who talk about, I really struggle as well. I struggle, and Megan Gale particularly, for example, says, I look like I have to have the perfect life, and I hate, I second guess every photo I put up on Instagram because I don't want people to think I struggle too. But
she says, because I wrote that one down, I found that really interesting. Megan Gale, really worth reading that section, guys, when you get the book. She hides the truth sometimes at the risk of being misunderstood.
Yes, because she doesn't want people to throw stones and say, oh, how can you complain? You look like you have the perfect life. You've had a great career. You've got a gorgeous husband. You've got 2 kids. Of course you've had the perfect life. And she said, yes, my life has been good. I've been lucky and things have worked out. She said, but that's not to say that I don't also have struggles with parenting or feeling inadequate or self-esteem or other things. And I think one thing I probably learned out of the book is it's good to acknowledge what you're feeling. Like we have to acknowledge what we're feeling, even though we look like what we have on the outside might be perfect, or like everyone is struggling, and especially with this pandemic.
No one's got it made. No one has got it made.
In their own. And
I love that you talk about that. You say, knock off the stuff about privilege and the privilege wars. That was a quote from Yumi Steins, I think. If I've misattributed the quote, I apologize.
No, it is Yumi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Everyone's got stuff going on. No one's got it made. No one has it together. And no matter how beautiful Megan Gale is, she still has arguments and fallouts with friends. She still has trauma. She still has loss, and she still has kids who she's trying to learn how to parent, the same as everybody else. One of the harshest things ever said to me, I can't have kids, never been able to have kids. And I was expressing to a woman once, I feel kind of, I don't know if I feel sad about not having kids, but I'm thinking about it. She goes, what are you worried about? You've got everything. I'm like, wow, that form of coming at me, that means you're having me having to look perfect, and then that can't be a problem. And I'm thinking, that's every woman's experience. Mine just happens to be around kids, but every woman's got something going on that hurts them, that is traumatic, that they're grieving, that they've lost, that they pined for, that didn't happen. Everybody on the planet has that experience. And to judge someone because you think they've got it made means they're not allowed to have the problem. That is too much pressure. I quit that job. I'm not taking that role.
Yeah, I mean, I think, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
a pretty full-on story. I think we have to, deal with, and the experts that I spoke to in this space, and you would probably, is you need to deal with your, fix your own mask before you can fix other people's. So, often I struggle with complaining about this when I think about women in Syria or women, in India who are struggling with a pandemic, and I think, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. I mean, I've got a privileged existence, and just stop what I'm thinking. But you need to feel what you're feeling before you can help other people, and then you can deal with and then go and help other people. And I that permission, that kind of gave me permission that, okay, it's okay to feel like this.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to feel like that, and then you can go and, go and support the charity for helping people in India or wherever that may be. You go and help your community.
I worry sometimes that there is a movement in the world, and you touch on this around the woke movement. There's a movement in the world, and you occasionally you came across a little apologetic about, like you just said, that I'm even wrestling with this. And I really question the mental health pathway we're on if we keep being made to feel guilty, or if anyone tries to shame us for wanting to wrestle with what life's serving us. I mean, life has served up me certain cards. Life has served up you, I'm sure, certain cards. We can't just suddenly act like we don't have those problems to solve or those things to deal with because other people aren't as well off as us. That's not actually, otherwise we're just in a race to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes no sense to say to me, well, that's your only problem. You don't have any problems. Well, actually, no, because with that attitude, anyone who looks like they're doing well isn't ever allowed to be heard.
Yeah,
That's really unhealthy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I do though, when you were talking, I just keep coming back. One thing I probably learned throughout the book and from people that I spoke to, I interviewed Kelly Cartwright. She's a Paralympian who lost her leg through cancer at 14. Mm-hmm. I mean, the one thing, women who have gone through true adversity just come back to is gratitude. And I know it might sound so fey, and it's a thing that, you just gratitude. But, and Emma Murray, who I know you've interviewed before, who's she's a psychotherapist and the mindfulness coach at Richmond Football Club. She said something that really resonated with me, and that was, gratitude, it's all good and well saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, but gratitude only works when you truly feel it, when you truly feel it inside you. So often now I've learned, when I'm having one of those, my world's caving in kind of days, you just have to stop yourself. I do. And think, okay, well, and so at the end, I've got into this practice actually, particularly during the pandemic, where at the end of every day, I write the best thing that happened to me during the day. And that could be, it's just a little thing I've done over the last couple of months. And that could be walking one of my sons to school. Yesterday I actually made it to a yoga class. The day before was I got a story in a day early.
Yeah.
I had a really lovely conversation with my husband. It's just, or I had a great coffee. Like, honestly, they're just the most minuscule little things.
Beautiful.
And I actually it's really helped me get through my days and just
wonderful.
Focus on perhaps all that other big stuff and think about, no, what will get me through is being grateful for what I'm actually doing today.
Yeah. My husband and I, for about years now, each evening at some point we share something we're grateful for the other person and the highlight of our day.
I love that.
And it be over dinner or as we're going to bed, or just every single day we'll do that. Or it could be during the day when it happens. I'm so grateful. That's my gratitude for today. And I know after this, I'm going to go have breakfast for him. We're going to get takeaway breakfast and pretend we're in a country in the world. So yesterday was London at a pub. Today we're going to have breakfast in Paris. And and that'll be my highlight. There's a lot in the book you talk about what we can do. One of my favorite things you spoke about was living a values-driven life. This is my passion. This is how I got to let go of a lot of the stuff that used to just tie me in knots, the need to be the hero and look like I've got it together and never admit that I'm flawed or that I'm fallible. and finding my values and living my values. We have a very similar approach each year. Would you want to talk about what you do each year? Because I really relate to that. I think it's wonderful.
I mean, yeah, well, so I'm obviously live a values-based life like you, but I would, I always, I know my values, they've pretty much stayed the same throughout my life, but each year I kind of narrow them down and
Yeah.
and think, okay, this year, what are they going to be? And I used to think, oh, I need like 20 values. And now I need 3. If I'm a lot clearer and more specific, then it's easier to set up boundaries and say no to things that don't align with those. So that's how I do every year or every 6 months. I just sit down and think, okay, what are the 3 things that are most important to me this year? I mean, it could be friendship, it could be marriage, it could be work, it could be kids, or whatever it is. And I'm just clear about them and write them down. And then they're kind of like a filter.
Yes.
Like the glasses that you see. Okay, so this year, particularly, it's my kids. I've got young kids. Sadly, like my career has had to go on hold a bit. I mean, I'm still working, but not like, but that's what it is. And I've made a choice, and that's my choice.
You wrote a book.
It was last year. But yeah, no, that yes, I have been. Yeah, take on a lot. So this year I'm like, no, not much. This is what it is, and it's hard because often you get lost and you think, oh, but I want to do that. I want to do. I mean, I don't know how about you, Sharon, but I'm like to try everything. I've got to do this. I've got to do this.
Yes.
And so now I'm just like, no, be clear. This is what is important, and this is what you need to focus on, and this is what you need to do.
I think a lot of what we identify could be the challenges. That is to me, the key pathway through this. Have a theme for yourself for the year, and so you know where you're heading generally. So my theme each year will be maybe fitness. Other years it's friendship. Other years it's travel. Not this year.
Local coffee shop. Oh no, you're traveling today, going to France.
Going to Paris, exactly. And then I have my values, and then from that, whatever comes up that's aligned with that, I get to say yes with. Yes to. The other thing you spoke about, and I really enjoyed and appreciated, was boundaries. Women have very porous boundaries. Speak to a little bit about what boundaries mean to you, because I think this is key. Because if you've got values and you don't have clear boundaries, you'll trade your values for people pleasing every day of the week.
Exactly. And I think as women, we love to people please. Oh, just bake that cake because she needs some help with her party. And then suddenly you want to, I'm saying a kid's party here, and suddenly you want to do the 5-tier frozen cake for party.
That's never come across me.
Where is neither me, but but I think and I think at times we can say we've got boundaries, but we can be really flaky with them. And I think as women, we fear that if we have boundaries and we push back and say no, that we perhaps are being a bitch, that but they won't like me anymore, or, but I really think if you're clear and you say no, you might hurt them when you initially say no, but later on, I feel like you gain more respect. If you say no and then a reason why, I think that helps as well. But another thing I learned from the book is that the women that I interviewed, they're really guarded with their time, and obviously my book's all about overwhelm and mental load and not finding balance and just being so consumed with life. But the women who seem to have a bit of balance figured out are the ones that are so careful with their time. So they have their boundaries, and they instead of saying yes to everything, they say no. They say, no, I don't want to meet up with the girls this Friday night because I want to stay at home with my husband. Or really clear, and they're really clear with who they spend their time with. Their friends are, they're close. They just have a close group of friends, and I think that's really important. And that's something that I've become a lot clearer about. The people that I say my friends, really important. I talk a bit about connection with other people as being one of the fundamentals to mental well-being. Is you want to walk away energized and uplifted from a friend. I mean, that's not going to happen every time because they're going to struggles of their own. But if repeatedly you feel like you walk away and you're like, oh my goodness, that just sucks the life out of me, well, then maybe it's time to just, I know that sounds harsh, but
No, it doesn't. Connection for the sake of connection isn't connection. It actually makes you feel more alone.
exactly.
I feel more lonely in those situations where I'm compromising my values for the sake of being with them. I actually feel less energized when I walk and disappointed with myself. Like, why did I do that? So I'm with you. I've made really good decisions around that. What's one more thing you'd want to share with me about your book that you love? Well, 3 months, firstly, congratulations writing the book. What else would you want to share with me that you loved about it?
I think what I've loved, there was probably one thing that I really learned out of the whole book, and that is the line "done is better than perfect." And I think that
Yes.
comes back to perfectionism and a lot of things that we've spoken about. And now I'm just a lot about getting things done or saying no, and rather than just doing things, because I always used to strive personally to, I've got to do the best job on this story, I've got to do, build the best Lego house, or I've got to run the fastest when I go, for a run or whatever that may be. If that, as long as it's just 80%, as long as I get my ass to that gym, that's better. It doesn't have to be the best workout session ever, but I
Yeah.
got there. Right. And I think writing my book, my publisher Alan Unwin wanted it turned around really fast. So it's not the best thing that I could have done, but it's done, and that's.
I think we're going to edit that. You might want to do over that bit. I'm not including that.
No, that's what I told them anyway.
I love you feeling really comfortable, but let's do that bit over again. Carry on.
So ask me the question. Oh, do you want me to still go with the done is better than perfect?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wouldn't throw yourself under the tram.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so basically done is better than perfect is a motto now, or mantra that I carry through my whole life. I mean, it can be down to the minutiae of daily life. If, Tom puts the washing out, it might not be how I like it, but you know what, it's done. To the bigger things that, I strive for in my life, in the goals that I want to hit, if I want to, whatever it may be, do a fun run, or, as long as I do it, it might not be my best, but it's done. So
the theme I'm getting through constantly came through in the book, but very clear from chatting with you is give yourself a break. Yeah. Self-care isn't having the bath. It's give yourself a break. You're okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You are not measured by that standard. That's only what you're doing to yourself. That's what I'm hearing you saying. It's a much gentler way to live than I've got to be everybody's hero and it's all on me.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think as women, I mean, that's really where the book came from, because I had been talking to mums at the school gate, my barista, my friends, my work colleagues, and this is what I'm just hearing, that we're trying to be women that we won't be, we never will be, and it's our undoing. And if we don't start talking about it and calling ourselves out and calling each other out as well, and being there to support each other, and I think that's the whole premise of it, is that, okay, this is the way it is, we're all overwhelmed, our well-being's suffering, but there are things that you can do today to help. And that can be boundaries, it can be setting your values, it can be reconnecting connection with friends, it can be taking time out. Like, that's why I am going skiing this weekend, because I just need and my husband, it works in the world of AFL, so I just need no AFL in my life for a weekend.
Yeah, good on you. And are you going by yourself? Because it's one of the things you spoke about in the book. I do have holidays by myself. Are you going alone? Are you going with girlfriends or?
I'm with girlfriends. Yes.
Yeah. All right, well, have a wonderful time. Think of us in Melbourne or not.
And actually, that was back to what Yumi said. That's when your point about Yumi Child said that every woman needs a mental break. You just need a break away, and probably by yourself. And she says it used to be a rich lady thing that I thought, but in fact, everyone can do it. You can just go to your local caravan park, or you can go wherever it may be, to stay at a friend's house in their spare room. And if we all just go inward for a little while, then that will help the outward.
I agree. Well said. Absolutely well said. Thank you, Felicity. It's been so wonderful having you join us. Lots of great tips. Again, the book is Balance and Other BS by Felicity Harley. Congratulations. Just be so pleased that you pulled off writing a book during very interesting times. And it's a book that's going to make a difference. And it's a timely book, because let's give up, ladies, on thinking we can have it all or that we should even strive for that. Let's have our version of wonderful for ourselves.
Well said. Thanks for having me, Sharon. And it's been lovely chatting.
Yeah, thank you.